This manhwa is your usual type of quote, being weak to be a cool hero with self-development and appearance. From being the weakest hunter of all mankind to a developing god. As a spoiler, this is that manhwa where this iconic smile came from. Cue the smile of the statue god. Meet our protagonist, Sung Jin-Woo, the ugliest, most ordinary-looking dude you'll ever see. But then he met God and thought he was tough, so he beat him out and accidentally unlived him. And nope, the main character never dies, and that's when Jin-Woo's life started to change. It all started more than a decade ago, when a portal suddenly appeared bringing monsters and chaos into the world. But it was all balanced when humanity also gained abilities that would help them conquer back the world. They are called hunters, and based on the awakened powers, they are ranked from E as the weakest and S as the strangest. You might think these two characters from the intro are the main ones, seeing how tough and strong they are, but nope. It's this guy with a hoodie that is too thin and weak-looking to even get accepted by a party. Sung Jin-Woo, known as the weakest hunter out there, who tags along with his friend Lee Ju-hee, likely to be the only one who cares about him, and a group of stronger hunters into what they think is a typical dungeon raid. The party was there to collect gems and sell them for cash, but it isn't an easy job, especially if you're weak AF like Jin-Woo over here. He is so broke that his small knife with little magic couldn't penetrate a lower-rank monster, leading him to another injury. But thanks to Ju-hee, he was healed in almost an instant. Meanwhile, the group is doing its best to fight off the monsters. On the other hand, the government is looking into using gems as a new alternative for safe nuclear power. With that crystal, the government could make a green power with less pollution, which is why hunters are essential. For Jin-Woo's party, everything goes according to plan at first, and they take down the boss monster without much trouble. But instead of the gate collapsing as expected, a hidden second dungeon opens up, revealing a whole new level of danger. The group is split on whether to keep going, but Jin-Woo is the tiebreaker, and they decide to push forward, a big mistake. Although he was just a Chad to help his sick mother, you can't really blame him if he continues to look for money. Years ago, when Jin-Woo took his mana test, on that same day and event, there was a robbery. Since it seemed like the police wouldn't arrive early, Cha Hai-in, an S-rank hunter, took matters into her hands and dealt with the thieves, just to showcase that the world is no longer as easy as before. Going back to the present time, Jin-Woo and the others decided to venture to the twin dungeon, where they saw a massive door and thought it would be great to enter inside. They step into a massive room filled with creepy statues, and everything seems quiet until it isn't. Everyone was looking for the boss monster, but there wasn't any. So they analyzed the statues that surrounded them when Ju-hee noticed that the biggest statue's eyes were looking at them. It was an eerie feeling, but then the door suddenly closed itself, and the members were too late to decide that they wanted to leave. Out of nowhere, the statues spring to life, turning the place into a slaughterhouse. Seeing their member die in front of them, everyone was panicking. And Ju-hee was right. The largest statue really moved its eyes. That's when he knew he effed up. The hunters are picked off one by one, with Jin-Woo quickly realizing they're trapped in a death game with rules that make zero sense. It's a bloodbath, and survival suddenly feels like a long shot as Jin-Woo and his teammates try to escape the nightmare they've stumbled into. As a weak person, going on a raid is the closest to earning, but he always stumbles and tries his best to stay alive after seeing the monsters attacking. However, in this particular raid, there is a 100% chance he's going to die. As the statues wreak havoc in the dungeon, Jin-Woo starts piecing together that they're trapped in some twisted survival game with specific rules. First, worship the god, then praise God, and finally, believe in God. It's a deadly puzzle, and the hunters are struggling to follow the bizarre instructions while trying not to get slaughtered. One of their members tried to escape, believing in their speed and ability to reach the door, but he was still too slow to outrun the statue, and he ended up disappearing from the fiery eyes of God. It seems hopeless now, but Jin-Woo confirmed that the statue only wants them to kneel and worship him, so he convinced the others to kneel. At first, they were hesitant, but after they all did it, the statue smiled with a terrifying expression. They were celebrating, thinking they already defeated it. But the statue said, "Psych!" The statue stood up and walked towards them. The next commandment was, praise the god, so one of the members who claimed to study traditional folklore started praying to the statue. But that doesn't seem to do the deal, seeing how he was crushed by the statue's foot. With that, Everyone started running away and accidentally got killed by the other statues surrounding them. Amidst the running, Jin-Woo notices that every other statue attacks, except the ones with a musical instrument. Since Jin-Woo was with Ju-hee, he had to find another statue. However, he was attacked and lost his foot, so he crawled his way to the instrument statue, just in time for him not to die on the foot of the god statue. Right after the god statue sat down on his throne, Ju-hee immediately ran up to him and healed his wounded leg. But they can't rest that long because an altar appeared in the middle of the dungeon. This time, everyone looked at Jin-Woo for answers, so he replied that it must be the third commandment, which was, believe in God. They thought the god statue was asking for a sacrificial lamb, so they all voted for their captain, Sung Jin-Woo, to take responsibility for dragging them into that brutal dungeon. Since not much reaction was done, Jin-Woo asked the others to help him take a closer look at the altar. They gotta finish this once and for all because the 7-day limit of each dungeon was near. If they go past that time, then the portal of the dungeon would be fully open to the world, and they can't have this statue out. There are people that Jin-Woo wants to protect and see, and those are her sister and her bedridden mother. That's when he realizes that the next challenge won't start unless everyone is inside the circle. With that, red and blue flames appeared and the door opened. The surrounding statues were getting closer and closer. The only thing that kept them in place was for the members to keep their eyes on them. However, one by one, each member would rather escape, creating a blind spot where the flames went out. It seems like the gate opening might only happen once, so the captain asks Ju-hee and Jin-Woo to escape before everything goes down. However, Jin-Woo countered the argument and chose to sacrifice himself instead. Of course, Ju-hee was against it, blabbering about not leaving him alone, but the captain hit her on the neck so she would collapse. Besides, he's always been the weakest member of that party, and he literally lost a leg, so he can't run that quickly. Still, he finds their hypocrisy selfish for abandoning him. In the middle of getting stabbed by the statues, he wished for another chance. As the blue flame timer went out, he received a mysterious message from the system congratulating him on completing a hidden quest. It offers him a way out, the chance to become a player if he accepts. It's a last-second lifeline, and Jin-Woo's decision to say yes sets the stage for his epic transformation. After crashing for 3 days straight, Jin-Woo wakes up, unsure if the double dungeon fiasco was all just a weird dream. Waking up in a hospital after getting traumatized by a raid was an unordinary experience, especially when he looked down at his feet, which were a complete set. I'm pretty sure he lost one, so why is it there? A few minutes after waking up, Jin-Woo was greeted by 2 men from the Hunters Association, where they talked about the experience they had in that dungeon. But the first thing he was concerned about was Captain Sung Jin-Woo and Ju-hee. The men in suits let them know that they're alive, but being fine is an understatement. Captain Song lost his arm while Ju-hee was suffering from severe trauma, so it would be hard to tell if she could recover from it or not. Only 6 people came back alive from the dungeon. When the survivors reported the incident, the guild went there immediately, only to see Jin-Woo lying unconscious on the floor without a trace of the temple or the statues. Jin-Woo was in disbelief, and the 2 men added that they put their suspicion on him for not seeing any dead bodies of the other members. But more importantly, they wanted to know if he experienced a reawakening. It is when a hunter would be able to surpass their limit and become stronger as an S-rank hunter. The thought hyped him up, but the men were there to confirm if he really experienced his second reawakening. They brought a magic detector with them, but Jin-Woo was disappointed because his power was only at 10, still stuck as the weakest hunter there is. Since Jin-Woo is just an ordinary man, the 2 men in suits left the room, leaving Jin-Woo disappointed with the score he had. It was out of his control. However, there was a message from the system that only he could see. Touching it brought memories of when he was close to crossing the afterlife, but the system gave him another chance. Before he played with it, his sister came in and scolded him for making her feel worried. Seeing her sister in the flesh reminded him of his goal to work hard for them because his family is what keeps him going. Anyway, he asked his sister if she could see the floating message in front of him, which she couldn't do, so it was confirmed that it was only for him. This type of floating message reminds him of a video game, and it was voice-activated as well. From Gina's perspective, her brother looks crazy, but at least he's physically fine, so she decides to leave him be. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo started exploring the messages and found out that he had a daily quest of doing 100 reps of workouts each. It sounds impossible to do, especially when he's still recovering, so he decided not to do it despite the warning of having a penalty. This is why he's the weakest among all of them. The timer of doing his quest was up, and as a penalty, he was transported to a desert with caterpillar monsters. Back at the hospital, the nurses who were assigned to check on him noticed that he was gone. They thought that it was a patient on the loose, so everyone started looking for him. As for Jin-Woo, he was getting his fair share of running in the desert world for almost 4 hours in total. Fast forward to 4 days after he woke up, Jin-Woo started his daily quest for the reward. Meanwhile, Joo-hee got a call from a recruiter at a raid party, but she turned down the call because of her condition. That's when she knew from the caller that Jin-Woo had already woken up. She decided to visit him in the hospital with a flower in hand, but she overheard a conversation between 2 nurses who were talking about how Jin-Woo had been working out ever since he woke up. For some reason, Joo-hee decided not to continue and went out instead. He has been increasing his strength a lot using the points he got from the quests, but he also gets a random reward, such as this key. It is a key from an instant dungeon that only he can enter, and without hesitation he went for it for his mother's sake. With a knife in hand, he ventured into the dungeon and came across some goblins. He was able to be on the same pace as them, and with his strength, he was able to kill them all. It was a liberating feeling for Jin-Woo, but a wolf appeared and broke his knife. To make matters worse, his fear came back, and he was stuck in a stance as the wolf launched itself towards him. Jin-Woo was able to fight it off with his fist, but a fist alone wouldn't do much damage, so he decided to use his inventory and took out the sword. Although it's a little too heavy for him, at least he was able to kill one while the other wolf got threatened and ran away. He's examining the wolf's body, looking for a crystal. However, he got himself a magic item instead. It's still new for him to be able to have this kind of privilege, but it's about time to get used to it. A shop from the system appeared, so he was thinking of buying items from there. Except he's still broke to buy anything, so he sells the magic wolf fang instead and gains 20 coins. Anyway, aside from that, he still can't get out of that dungeon unless he defeats the boss. So even if he's alone and scared, he has to stay strong and defeat the boss. On the other hand, the wolf that had left earlier came back with a pack, and even though he was still a little weak enough to defeat it, Jin-Woo was still determined to fight back. This is a life-or-death situation, and Jin-Woo has the drive to keep fighting. He was able to defeat them all with just a sword, gaining tons of rewards from each wolf that was killed. After that bloodbath, Jin-Woo was able to gather 34 fangs from the wolves that he could use to sell and buy other items. As for the teleportation stone, he already has it in hand, but he's still contemplating whether to escape that dungeon or not. However, it didn't take him long enough to decide to stay at that dungeon and gather tons of XPs and reward points while he was there. After a while in that dungeon, he noticed that the wolf's name had turned white, meaning he was already stronger than his opponent, which drove him to gain more and venture deeper into the dungeon. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Joo-hee receives a call that asks them to consider her decision because healers are close to becoming extinct. Remembering how Jin-Woo was improving himself by running around the hospital made her consider the decision, but her eyes were still as traumatized as ever. Back to Jin-Woo, he was already so deep in the dungeon that he reached the stairs that led to a terrifying monster. The monster attacked too early that he was caught off guard. Jin-Woo tried to fight back, but his sword gave out and was shattered into pieces. He tried again and again, only to be played by the water monster like he was a bouncy ball on a wall. Being in a hopeless situation such as that reminded Jin-Woo of the time when he was called the weakest hunter of all mankind. He's sick of getting called weak, so he vowed to show everyone that he can grow stronger too. And that time finally came. With a new sense of self-perception and drive, Jin-Woo found the courage to keep on attacking the snake monster. If his knife is too dull for its skin, he decides to use his bare fist instead, given how high his strength is. Finally, Jin-Woo is able to defeat the monster and level up so easily that it is like a speed run. Thanks to that, he was able to get a good sword and other good items from the store. And since he's done with his killing, he teleported back to the train station with a mission success. However, when he got out of the street, he saw no other people walking, which was unusual. Then, a military guard saw them with a sword in hand, so that means he was a hunter, something in demand at that time. There was a dungeon break, which is why they evacuated everyone from that part of the time. A bunch of hunters, healers, and the military were attacking them. Among the healers were Joo-hee, who still finds it hard to focus because every time she closes her eyes, she gets reminded of the smile of the god statue that traumatized her greatly. Seeing that everyone was struggling, Jin-Woo had to help out in a subtle way. He got into a pose and threw the broken sword on the monster's forehead, killing it in almost an instant and leaving everyone bewildered. Fast forward to the day of his discharge from the hospital, our guy Jin-Woo got a massive glow-up, and he became the hot gossip among the nurses. Thanks to the system's relentless training, he's gone from frail to full-on heartthrob. Nurse Choi Yura, who literally bumps into him post-workout, is so flustered by his muscles that she blushes while delivering his discharge notice. She awkwardly seizes the moment to ask for his number, pretending it's for official reasons. Jin-Woo, oblivious as ever, hands it over without a second thought, thinking it's just standard procedure. Switching gears, S-rank hunter Baek Yoon-ho makes an appearance on a morning news show where the host gushes about the rarity of his rank. There are only 7 S-rank hunters after all. Baek talks about his rigorous training routine, a habit he picked up during his firefighter days, proving that even as a top-tier hunter, he doesn't slack off. At Jin-Woo's home, his younger sister Gina is watching the interview when she realizes it's almost time for school. She calls out to Jin-Woo, who stumbles out of bed looking refreshed but still yawning. His changes immediately take her aback. He's taller, more muscular, and radiates confidence. After teasing him about working out, she gets ready to leave, but Jin-Woo insists she takes an umbrella despite her protests. That classic overprotective big brother move. Once alone, Jin-Woo reviews his progress. He's hit level 18, crushed a dungeon boss, and earned enough stat points to boost his strength, agility, and perception. But real life comes calling when his landlord phones about overdue rent. Refusing an extension out of pride, Jin-Woo resolves to pay it off ASAP and starts searching for raid jobs online. Even though he's strong enough to tackle high-level gates, his E-rank label means he has to play it safe for now, avoiding any unnecessary attention. He finds a job listing and heads to the meeting spot, a gate near a construction site. There, he meets the raid leader, Hwang Dong-suk, and his team. Jin-Woo's infamous reputation as the weakest hunter precedes him, and the group can't resist mocking him. Hwang quickly silences them, assuring Jin-Woo he's just there to meet the headcount requirement for entering the C-rank dungeon. Jin-Woo notices the group doesn't have a healer, which seems off, but he brushes it aside and signs the release form, officially joining the raid. As they approach the gate, Jin-Woo meets Yoo Jin-ho, a bubbly 21-year-old D-rank hunter decked out in expensive armor. The guy's a walking paycheck, but his chatty, friendly nature balances out his inexperience. Jin-Woo reassures him about the gate's intimidating size, explaining that its magic level, not its appearance, determines its rank. Inside, the dungeon is eerily dark, with no magic beasts or glowstones in sight. It puts Jin-Woo on edge, reminding him of the dreaded Kartanon Temple. When the group reaches a crossroads, he senses danger from above. His warning comes just in time as a swarm of giant, insect-like monsters attacks. The hunters handle themselves well, and Jin-Ho proves his armor isn't just for show, holding his ground amid the chaos. Still, Jin-Woo can't shake the feeling that something's off about this raid. The party eventually stumbles upon the boss chamber, a massive cavern filled with glittering mana stones and one enormous sleeping spider. Hwang, eyeing the mana crystals, sees this as a golden opportunity to one-up his younger brother, who's a fellow hunter. Jin-Ho, looking out for Jin-Woo, points out that according to their contract, Jin-Woo is entitled to a cut of the loot. Hwang agrees, on the surface. As the group pretends to retrieve excavation gear, they spring their real plan. With an explosion, they seal Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho inside the chamber, leaving them trapped with the dungeon boss. Hwang's plan is clear. Use them as bait to keep the spider occupied while the rest of the group loots the mana stones. Jin-Ho panics, but Jin-Woo steps forward with a calm determination. Telling Jin-Ho to stay back, he prepares to take on the giant spider himself. It's time for Jin-Woo to show that the weakest hunter isn't so weak anymore. Needing a job to survive in the real world, Jin-Woo found a raid party from an old acquaintance. However, Hwang Dong-suk and his team of treacherous lizards. Yes, actual scumbags planning to sneak through the upper tunnels, while Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho are left to face the giant arachnid Yura. These clowns are convinced that Jin-Woo is the weakest hunter and that Jin-Ho's only valuable for his shiny gear, which they plan to loot after the spider finishes them off. Of course, they're only after the mana crystals, worth 1 billion won, and are so confident they can avoid fighting the arachnid. What could go wrong, right? Meanwhile, Hwang's out here Googling Jin-Ho's dad, plotting to show fake sympathy at Jin-Ho's funeral if things go south. And trust me, things are about to go very south. They're basically just praying that Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho will be monster chow so they don't have to fight the spider themselves. Back in the boss's lair, Jin-Ho is freaking out, suggesting they bail instead of fighting. I mean, it's a C-rank boss, and you'd need to be at least B-rank to solo it. But Jin-Woo, ever the optimist, decides this is the perfect moment for a battle, and no one is going to stop him. With a smirk, he charges straight for the spider like it's no big deal. He tries stabbing the thing with his dagger, Kasaka's venom fang. But nope, not even a scratch on the giant armored arachnid. He's dodging its massive legs, but his attacks are basically like trying to tickle a tank. Jin-Ho, meanwhile, is on the floor, sweating bullets, wondering if maybe Jin-Woo isn't actually just an E-rank but a false ranker, a hunter who hides their true power for funsies. And honestly, that would be terrifying, especially when the guy you're relying on is acting like a total beast while you're just trying to figure out how not to die. Jin-Ho's mental breakdown gets real here, and he starts questioning why he's even in this mess. But Jin-Woo isn't backing down. He's exhausted, running low on stamina, and the spider's finally about to squish him when, bam! He gets his full recovery reward from the system like it's a cheat code. Suddenly, he's back to full power, leaping in the air like some superhero and stabbing the spider right in the eye. The thing's paralyzed, and Jin-Woo's drain effect finishes it off. Jin-Ho still pretends to be normal, calling Jin-Woo boss, as if he is not losing his mind. The raid crew, high above them in the tunnels, comes down and is shaken to find Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho alive. At this point, I'm just sitting here thinking, did you really think you could just let two hunters die in a dungeon and walk away with $1 million? Come on, man. But apparently they did. Meanwhile, we get a brief interlude with Chairman Go of the Hunters Guild, who's so tired from meetings he needs to spar with his subordinate for fun. He effortlessly blocks Jinchul's attacks and sends him flying with a single punch. It's like watching a bear play with a puppy, but it's cooler. He compliments Jinchul on his training, saying it'll save his life in the dungeons. Great advice, but maybe not enough for the trash raid team that's about to meet their doom. Back in the dungeon, Huang and his crew are back, and they seriously think Jin-Ho used his fancy gear to defeat the spider. They're that clueless. Huang then tries to play his last card, demanding that Jin-Ho kill Jin-Woo to save himself. And Jin-Ho? He refuses to betray Jin-Woo, showing he has a shred of honor in that shiny armor of his. So Huang decides to off Jin-Woo anyway, but plot twist. The system chimes in with a task. Kill the 6 murderous hunters or be killed yourself. Jin-Woo's like, cool, I was planning on that anyway, and starts slicing through them like a pro. Juntae tries to talk smack before he's swiftly decapitated. Jin-Woo's just done at this point. He takes out the rest of the team, leaving just Huang, who tries to attack him in desperation. Jin-Woo dodges it like he's dodging a child's punch and takes Huang down with one hand because, spoiler alert, Jin-Woo's been leveling up while they've been chatting trash. Huang begs for mercy, but Jin-Woo's like, you tried to kill me 3 times, bro. Game over. With a cold snap of his neck, Huang's head rolls, and the dungeon starts closing up. Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho are finally free, but the hunters back in the city are confused about how these 2 random low-rankers survived. They assume it's because Jin-Ho's gear is just that good. But honestly, at this point, everyone's just pretending they don't know Jin-Woo's secretly a walking one-man army. As the episode wraps up, it starts raining, and Jin-Woo's all calm and collected, thinking about how he made sure his sister got that umbrella earlier. Because real talk, he's the one who needs protection now. On the other hand, the Korean Hunters Association is scratching its heads over the insects dungeon disaster. 6 out of 8 hunters? Toast, the survivors, a D-rank rich kid in designer armor and an E-rank who's apparently been lifting more than weights. Oh, and surprise! One of the casualties was Hwang Dong-suk, aka Big Bro to the infamous psycho, S-rank Hwang Dong-soo. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem later. Woo Jinchul hears Sung Jin-Woo and immediately perks up like someone just offered him front-row BTS tickets. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo strolls home like he didn't just massacre some hunters and a giant spider. He's even got fried chicken for his sister Jinna because of priorities. Jin-Woo casually drops that he's covering rent and hospital bills now, and Gina's like, oh cool, how'd the raid go? Cue Jin-Woo staring into the middle distance, reliving his murder spree but make it legal moment. It's all very changed energy, but he shakes it off and reassures Gina he's fine. Spoiler, he's not. Later, the system hits Jin-Woo with a detox notification for his beer like, alcohol, not on my watch. This man can't even get buzzed anymore, poor guy. In his room, he checks out his upgrades and stumbles on Candiaru's blessing, which explains why he's basically Wolverine now. Gina interrupts his nerd-out session to tell him Yu Jinho's calling, and she notices the graveyard of beer cans on his desk. He brushes it off because, well, Jin-Woo things. Cut to Cafe Peen, where Jin-Ho is once again kissing Jin-Woo's boots to save him. He tries to rope Jin-Woo into his strike team with promises of power and cash, like 30 billion worth of cash. Jin-Woo's like, I don't have time for your trust fund dreams, bro. But Jin-Ho is persistent, even dangling the threat of spilling Jin-Woo's secrets. Jin-Woo hits him with a death glare so strong that Jin-Ho practically disintegrates on the spot. Meanwhile, in America, Dong-soo gets the news that his brother is dead. And let me tell you, the man does not take it well. He crushes his phone, his notepad, and probably a table too, and starts plotting revenge like a straight-up anime villain. Someone tells him murder might have consequences. Back in Korea, Jin-Woo casually jogs with Gina, teasing her about eating too much fried chicken. He asks what she'd do with 30 billion, and her wholesome answer about hospital bills just proves she's the real MVP. Jin-Woo, meanwhile, is grinding his daily quest like he's prepping for a final boss fight. The system rewards him with a secret quest, and boom, he gets a key to an S-rank dungeon. The prize? Ingredients for an elixir of life that could save his mom. Naturally, he dives into the dungeon immediately. And here's where things get wild. The demon's castle is on fire. There's a three-headed dog named Cerberus, and Jin-Woo's out here trying not to die. Cerberus takes a chunk out of his arm like it's snack time, and Jin-Woo has to pull every trick in the book just to stay alive. Healing potions? Check. Buffs? Check. Rage mode? Oh, absolutely. It's an all-out brawl, and even though Jin-Woo's down to his last hit point, he goes full-on berserker and takes Cerberus down. With the boss defeated, Jin-Woo levels up, heals like nothing happened, and collects his loot, the key to the Demon King's castle and the elixir recipe. The man's got a new goal: save his mom, no matter how many S-rank monsters he has to obliterate. In this next scene, we can find Jin-Woo in the hospital watching over his mom, who's stuck in anime coma mode thanks to eternal sleep disease. Instead of moping around, Jin-Woo's like, time to hit the grind and storm the demon castle later for some magical mom juice. Priorities, right? Next up, at Cafe Pain, Yoo Jin-ho finally convinces Jin-Woo to join him on 19 dungeon raids. But Jin-Woo's got conditions. They go in solo while hiring some extras to just stand around looking pretty. Jin-ho's all, sounds good, as long as dad thinks I'm a genius. Classic trust fund kid vibes. Meanwhile, Cha Hai-in is at track practice when some shady guy from Yujin Construction approaches her about becoming a guild master. She's like, thanks, but no thanks, because Cha doesn't need your sketchy offers, mister. Over in the Yu family car, Jin-ho's getting roasted by his dad, Yu Myung-han, who's like, we're building a guild, but you're not the star, son. That's your brother's job. Poor Jin-ho is forever the side character in his own family drama. Jin-Woo tries his daily quest, hoping for another demon castle key, but nope, he gets a useless bingo card instead. Frustrated, he considers fighting giant centipedes, but luckily gets a notification for an urgent D-rank raid. He's like, fine, guess I'll do it. Elsewhere, we meet Song Chi-yul, the retired Kumdo master-turned-hunter. Despite his age and missing an arm, he's still determined to contribute. Absolute legend. Then there's Kim Sang-shik, a family man struggling to make ends meet, convincing his wife that risking his life in raids is totally fine. Spoiler, it's not. Meanwhile, the guild leaders Baek Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in are having a passive-aggressive meeting about the Yujin Guild and their plans to reclaim Jeju Island. Baek's like, why am I here? And Choi's like, because trauma bonding over past failures is a great team-building exercise. On the emo side of things, Lee Joo-hee has a heated phone call with her mom and spirals into a mini-existential crisis. But thinking about Jin-Woo's glow-up inspires her to stop sulking and start slaying, literally. As Jin-Woo heads to the raid, his sister Gina tries to stop him, worried because he's not even bringing gear. He's like, relax, I've got plot armor, and bounces. At the gate, Jin-Woo reunites with Song and his old double dungeon buddies. Awkward vibes all around, especially since Kim and Kang Jong-ho are drowning in guilt for abandoning Jin-Woo back then. But wait, there's more. The strike team rolls up with 3 C-rank criminals in handcuffs, part of the Substitute Hunter program. Because when you're short on hunters, why not bring convicted felons to help fight monsters? Kang Tae-shik, the B-rank babysitter, is there to keep them in line. What could possibly go wrong? As Jin-Woo reunites with his old strike team in the dungeon, it's awkward central. Kim Sang-shik is clearly drowning in guilt over ditching Jin-Woo back in the double dungeon, but instead of apologizing, he's just awkwardly quiet, like a kid who broke a vase and hopes no one notices. Meanwhile, Kang Tae-shik is overseeing the prisoner hunters, who are way too into slaughtering goblins. These guys are straight up kicking severed heads like they're in some macabre soccer match. Tae-shik, who's got some serious psycho vibes, casually asks, hey, you ever kill humans this easily? And they're like, Yeah, no biggie. Red flag alert. Turns out Taishik's been hired by a grieving father to take these guys out for some heinous crimes. Justice system. Who needs it when you've got a shady hitman and 3 billion won? The team splits up at a fork in the dungeon. Jin-Woo, Joo-hee, and Song take one path, while Kim and Jong-ho head down another, with Tae-shik and his convict squad going solo. Kim finally decides he's going to apologize to Jin-Woo for being a coward because, you know, it's better late than never. But surprise! Tae-shik flips the script, slaughters the prisoners, and then ambushes Kim and Jong-ho. When Jin-Woo's group arrives, it's already a carnage city. Kim is barely alive, wheezing out an apology, while Jin-Woo yells at him to stay alive just so he can keep blaming him. Kim's like, yeah, no can do, but sorry, bro, and dies. Ripe, I guess. Tae-shik pops out of the shadows to attack Joo-hee, but Jin-Woo catches his arm mid-air because he's a total boss. Tae-shik's all, time to make up a story about prisoners gone wild, but Song's not having it. Grandpa picks up a sword to defend the squad and actually holds his own for a bit. Props to him. But Tae-shik's an assassin-type hunter, slicing Song up like he's prepping sashimi. Just when things look bleak, Jin-Woo steps in. Tae-shik, now realizing Jin-Woo isn't some weakling E-rank, goes full psycho, grinning like he's auditioning for a villain role. Jin-Woo, cool as ever. They clash in a flurry of blades, but Tae-shik pulls a disappearing act with his stealth ability. He slices Jin-Woo's ankle. Bad move because Jin-Woo casually heals it like, nice try. This throws Tae-shik completely off. He's like, wait, a combat hunter with healing skills? What kind of cheat code is this? Jin-Woo activates murderous intent and blinds Tae-shik long enough to deliver the finishing blow. As Tae-shik dies, he gives Jin-Woo some cryptic warning about the darkness, and Jin-Woo says, yeah, whatever, thanks for the XP. Afterwards, Woo Jin-chul, an A-rank investigator, shows up, and Jin-Woo's secret is almost exposed. But Song, being the real MVP, takes credit for taking down Tae-shik. The investigator buys it, probably thinking, sure, why not? Meanwhile, Jin-Woo stands there saying, thanks, old man, you the best. The episode ends with Jin-Woo and Joo-hee chilling in a park, where she pulls out an essence stone and gets all sentimental. Jin-Woo's finally relaxing, but you just know this peace won't last long. What is the moral of the story? Never trust a guy with psycho eyes, and don't underestimate Jin-Woo because this man is just getting started. Alright, let's dive into the latest episode of Solo Leveling, where Jin-Woo continues his journey of out-leveling both monsters and capitalism while leaving people flabbergasted in his wake. The episode kicks off with Jin-Woo and Joo-hee having a heart-to-heart stroll through a scenic park. Joo-hee, sweet but timid, decides the hunter life isn't for her anymore. She thanks Jin-Woo for being her personal injury machine. Seriously, her healer skills were a full-time job when they worked together, and hands back the essence stone he gave her ages ago. She's retiring, folks. Mic drop. I hope to see you again soon, she says with a smile before walking off like a character in a drama finale. Cut to Jin-Woo, who's all like, retirement? Can't relate. His mind's on Woo Jin-chul's ominous warning. The law is powerless to deal with S-ranks. Translation. There's a psycho S-rank out there, Hwang Dong-soo, who might be gunning for revenge. Jin-Woo takes it as motivation, like, time to power up again. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's sidekick, Jin-ho, assembles a squad of misfit hunters to meet the 8-person requirement for their next C-rank gate. We've got an alcoholic, a newbie, and even Han Song-yi, Jin-Woo's sister's school friend, who's skipping class to stab goblins. Classic overachiever energy. Jin-Woo calls her out, though. Sit down, E-rank. Jin-Woo and Jin-ho tell the squad to chill outside while they clear the dungeon themselves. It's like showing up to a group project and watching one guy do all the work. In just an hour, boom, dungeon cleared. Everyone outside is shaken. One guy even double-checks the time like, no way this happened faster than my coffee order. As the days roll on, Jin-Woo speed runs through goblins, snakes, and werewolves, leveling up like he's grinding XP in a video game. He unlocks skills left and right, including stealth, which is basically his disappear and flex button. Oh, and he casually hits level 40. No big deal. Meanwhile, the White Tiger Guild gets wind of Jin-ho dropping serious cash on dungeon rights and starts sniffing around. Manager An is convinced Jin-Woo's had a second awakening because surviving 3 murder dungeons is apparently a dead giveaway. An pulls up to the gate where Jin-Woo is wrecking shop solo, takes one look at the mismatched strike team outside and thinks, what in the picnic squad is this? Later, Jin-Woo meets An for coffee, and An tries to recruit him by talking about the White Tiger Guild. Jin-Woo shuts him down harder than a spam call. Yujin Construction offered me 30 billion. An practically chokes on his latte. Then Jin-Woo flips the script and sells An 3 gates for 600 million won, proving he's not just a beast in dungeons, he's also a capitalist king. An realizes Jin-Woo outplayed him and still walks away impressed. Finally, Jin-Woo rolls off into the sunset, cruising down the highway in a red truck, ready to take on his change quest. Meanwhile, the White Tigers are licking their financial wounds, realizing they have overpaid by a cool 210 million won. Jin-Woo's text hits them with a "we're square," and honestly, it's the ultimate mic drop. As dusk falls, we can see Jin-Woo strolling into the woods, ready to tackle his job change quest. Why the woods? Because summoning a glowing void of doom in public would probably freak people out. Before diving in, Jin-Woo pauses to reflect on all the other instances of dungeons he's conquered, probably thinking, I survived worse. How bad can it be? Famous last thoughts. He summons the dungeon, and bam! Out comes a swirling purple gate, lit up with crackling lightning. If that's not a do not enter sign, I don't know what is. But hey, Jin-Woo's main character's energy means he runs straight toward danger. Just as he's about to step in, he realizes he hasn't done his daily quest. Yep, even superhumans procrastinate. But instead of knocking out his push-ups, he shrugs it off like, I'll do it later, and dives headfirst into the unknown. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Yoo Jin-ho is having the most awkward family dinner ever. Picture this. His dad, Yoo Myung-han, is swirling wine like he's auditioning for a sommelier role, while his older brother, Yoo Jin-sung, saunters in fashionably late, throwing in some fake apologies for being late. Myung-han's all chill, like, don't worry, son, you're right on time, because clearly, this family runs on rich people time. Jin-sung sizes up Jin-ho with a smug little remark about how long it's been, and Jin-ho's sitting there like a deer in headlights, probably wishing Jin-Woo would show up and flex on these guys. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo starts exploring, and things seem weirdly normal. Then, a system message pops up to ruin his day. It turns out, this dungeon is a hardcore no-fun zone. No potions, no healing, no leveling up bonuses, and worst of all, no leaving until the quest is done. So basically, Jin-Woo's stuck in a real-life hell mode. Before he has time to process how doomed he is, the metallic clanging of armored footsteps echoes down the hallway. A hulking knight charges at him, looking like it just escaped from a medieval torture museum. Jin-Woo tries to slice it with his trusty Kasaka's venom fang, but it's like stabbing a tank with a toothpick. Plan B? Raw strength. Remembering how he bare-handedly wrecked Kasaka, the snake, Jin-Woo channels his inner beast mode and tears the knight apart with his bare hands. That's right. He ripped through armor bare-handed. Somebody get this man a Hulk sponsorship. While Jin-Woo's busy unlocking new trauma in his dungeon, the Yujin family dinner heats up. Myung-han casually asks Jin-sung about his progress in forming the Yujin Guild, and Jin-sung starts rambling about their failure to recruit top-tier S-rank hunters like Cha-hai-in. He even mentions reaching out to Europe and the Middle East for help, which sounds desperate. Then he turns to Jin-ho, throwing shade about his little C-rank dungeon escapades. Jin-ho stays quiet, but you just know he's thinking, laugh it up now, big bro, because I've got Jin-Woo in my back pocket. Speaking of Jin-Woo, he's now knee-deep in dungeon chaos, facing wave after wave of knights, assassins, and mages. It's like every bad RPG raid rolled into one. His stamina is draining fast, but he's dodging attacks and dishing out counters like a pro. When a stealth assassin tries to ambush him, Jin-Woo flips the script and takes it out with ease. He even dodges a mage's fireball mid-battle, but he's starting to realize his magic resistance isn't cutting it. Maybe I should have put more points into intelligence, he thinks, probably regretting all those upgrades to brute strength. Over at the Hunters Guild, Choi Jong-in is gearing up for a helicopter ride with Cha-hai-in and a squad of high-ranking hunters. Their destination? Jeju Island is the land of horrifying ant monsters, and even worse, memories. Choi's determined to redeem himself after the failed raid years ago, but let's be real, it's ants versus trauma here. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo clears the last wave of knights and loots a shiny new B-rank chest plate. Finally, some actual gear. He equips all the armor in his inventory for the first time, only to realize it's invisible. That's right, Jin-Woo's now running around the dungeon like an overpowered streaker. Feeling refreshed, he steps up to the next challenge, the boss room. Cue the dramatic entrance of Knight Commander Igris the Blood Red. This dude is a walking final boss cliché, decked out in glowing red armor with a name to match. Jin-Woo charges in, but Igris is so fast he barely sees him move. Within seconds, Jin-Woo flew across the throne room, crashing into walls like a human pinball. Igris, oozing confidence, sets down his sword to make the fight fair. Spoiler, it's still not fair. Jin-Woo gets tossed around like a rag doll, and things look bleak. Then, in true anime protagonist style, he slumps onto the throne, catches Igris's sword mid-strike, and yells, "I'm not finished!" With a desperate burst of strength, he stabs Igris in the throat and finally takes him down. His reward? An S-rank helmet, the ruler's hand skill, and a teleportation stone. But the dungeon's not done with him yet. Jin-Woo learns he has to survive even more waves of enemies to advance to a higher class. Just when he thinks he's got a fighting chance, a sneaky knight smacks the teleportation stone out of his hands. Surrounded and out of options, Jin-Woo braces for the ultimate showdown. We can see Jin-Woo getting absolutely kneaded across the throne room and smashing into a pillar like a human rag doll. He's out of mana, running on fumes, and surrounded by a never-ending wave of knights. No teleportation stone, no healing potions, just raw, unfiltered desperation. But Jin-Woo, being Jin-Woo, decides, you know what? Let's go full caveman mode. Bare hands, bloodied knuckles, and sheer stubbornness. One by one, he takes down the knights, but they just keep spawning, like some demonic version of whack-a-mole. And if that wasn't enough, his brain decides to play greatest hits of my worst traumas. Jin-Woo hears voices from his past, like Kim Sang-shik and Park Bayom-shik's top-tier roasts about how weak he used to be. Then, out of nowhere, his old comrades Song Chi-yul and Lee Ju-hee show up in ghostly form, like some weird intervention squad. They're all, "Dude, just give up. It's not worth it." And just when you think it can't get any worse, past Jin-Woo pops up, smiling like a Bond villain, to drop the ultimate diss, E-rank hunter, that's all you'll ever be. Meanwhile, back at the Korean Hunters Association, Chairman Go Gun-hee and Woo Jin-chul are having a quiet moment, reminiscing about the third Jeju Island raid. It's all very reflective and solemn, with Go dropping wisdom bombs like, hunters gotta face their trauma or it's game over. Spoiler, this might be foreshadowing. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo is barely holding on, snapping back at his ghostly self with a defiant, "Shut up!" But reality hits harder than his comeback, and he gets face-planted by a knight. His past self, ever the troll, hits him with, "Still not good enough," before leaving Jin-Woo to contemplate his life choices. Just as things hit rock bottom, the system throws him a bone. Jin-Woo gets whisked away to the penalty zone right as he's about to be night kebabbed. Now, the penalty zone is basically a fiery desert nightmare with giant sand centipedes popping up like uninvited party guests. Jin-Woo, being the absolute legend he is, decides this is the perfect time for some impromptu grinding. After chugging mana potions and getting his stamina back, he slices and dices those creepy crawlies like a pro. By the time he's done, he's leveled up, healed, and has a shiny new dagger called Night Killer. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. Cut to Jeju Island, where Choi Jong-in and his squad of hunters are flying in for their next big showdown. The pilot detects mana in the water, and everyone's like, "Oh great, more bad news." Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo's ready for round 2. He figures out that the endless knights are just puppets summoned by mages, so he pulls a pro gamer move, focus on the mages. Using his new dagger toss skill, he takes them out one by one, and their knights crumble like bad Jenga towers. But of course, the mages summon a massive golem as their final trick. Jin-Woo annihilates it, completing the job change quest like an absolute boss. Then comes the big twist. The system awards him the Necromancer class. Jin-Woo's not thrilled at first. He's been all about solo fights, not magic spam. But after some thought, and the system threatening to take the hidden class away, he accepts. Surprise! The Necromancer class gets upgraded to Shadow Monarch, which lets him summon an army of shadow soldiers. He tests it out by resurrecting 30 knights and then tries to bring back the ultimate prize, Igris, the Blood Red. After a couple of failed attempts, Jin-Woo pulls out the big guns, a heartfelt speech about fighting for something instead of guarding an empty throne. It works. Igris rises as Jin-Woo's new shadow soldier, and the two make an epic team. Cue the kneeling shadow army. It's like The Lion King meets Game of Thrones. Meanwhile, on Jeju Island, Choi and his team are greeted by the horrifying sight of evolved ants with wings. Because, you know, regular giant ants weren't nightmare-inducing enough. Jin-Woo survives emotional torment, levels up, builds an army, and scores a shadow BFF, while Jeju Island promises even more chaos. What a day.